Hi, I'm Megan Hosken, and this is my scaffolded content unit focusing on nonfiction text features. So the big content area that I'm focusing on is reading, and the big enduring questions are: what are the differences between nonfiction and fiction texts, and how do nonfiction text features help the reader? And this is for a third grade class. Now, the reason that we're really looking at these two genres and looking at how they're different is because we want to go from understanding these genres to zooming in on nonfiction text features, which are really special and important to the nonfiction genre. So the ELs in my classroom are all US born. I have some ELs that are fairly fluent in English. They would still be considered part of the levels that I have below, but a couple of my ELs are definitely at risk for being long-term English language learners. So the highest they would be at would be a level 3 developing, but then I do have level 4 expanding and level 5 bridging. My first lesson in the unit is a PSYOP lesson, and we are comparing and contrasting fiction and nonfiction text. And what's really nice about this lesson is that students are going to be able to identify the difference between these two genres by actually comparing the text side by side. So in my lesson, they had nonfiction text and they had fiction text, and they were able to compare two books on the same topic, which is really important. So in order to get them thinking about that, they did a think, pair, share with their partners on the carpet. They were able to have the books in their hands and really go through, take some picture walks, and figure out what did they see that was very different and what did they see that was the same. Now, as they were doing this, their language objectives were that students will be able to orally explain different features between fiction and nonfiction text by comparing and contrasting keywords such as alike and different. And so I was really honing in and listening for those. Our meaningful activities for that would be a think, pair, share again, and then we had the activity numbered heads together. So I had students not only working with partners but working in groups. They were able to again look at those texts. They were talking to each other, explaining their ideas, and then when it was time to share whole group, I would roll a dice, and whatever number I would have picked, that would be the person who would share in front of the whole group. Now in lesson 1, the visuals, resources, all the materials that we really needed were that I had a big book of nonfiction, text features, key vocabulary was in there, illustrations were in there, and those were just really big examples so that students could really reference them if they needed that. Vocab words were presented on the board on sentence strips, and then what was nice about having them on the sentence strips is students were using graphic organizers, the Venn diagram, to help them put their ideas under either different or the same. And so when the students shared orally out loud to the whole group, I could then take those vocabulary cards on the sentence strips and put them in the big class Venn diagram that I had up on the board. So that was really nice, and the students had a really great visual for that. We also had different supplementary resources like the Brain Pop Junior video, which was all about reading nonfiction, and then the books that we modeled to give them a comparison to go off of was My Mouth is a Volcano by Julia Cook and Volcano Rising by Elizabeth Rush. Okay, so in that lesson, really the way that I could not only evaluate my students, but make sure that I was differentiating for them was through the MPI strand. And you can see all the different levels here and what I did for each level. So all students really were there to go ahead and compare and contrast these two genres. So for level 1 entering, I would have students matching images from the different texts, and then they would have to put them under either fiction or nonfiction. So that was a great modification for them. Level 2 students were identifying one feature from the text, and then they were going to share with their partner how it was either a fiction or nonfiction. Then again, as the levels progressed, they were giving more and more examples of features that were special to either nonfiction or fiction. And then you can see at the bottom, these were the vocabulary words I was really listening for. All right, on to our lesson 2. This was a CALA lesson. We started to introduce really focusing in on a strategy that the kids could use to remember these special nonfiction text features. So we're moving away from the fiction, we're focusing in on nonfiction, and we brought up this mnemonic device, Thieves, which is a really great strategy for ELs. And again, we really emphasized that strategy throughout the lesson. We wanted them to not only use it in this strategy, but if it worked for them and that was helpful for them, we wanted them to continue to be able to use it. So as you can see, these are our objectives. They go along with the standards. We want the students using text features and search tools to locate information. The search tools actually will come in a later lesson, but then we still want them to be using information from other text features like the illustrations, for example, maps and photographs and things like that. Now, during this lesson, we were looking for students to be able to name orally these text features, again, using that mnemonic device, Thieves, to help them remember those text features and what their names are. And then students are going to hopefully later on be able to explain what is the purpose of that text feature, how is it helping the reader. Now, as you can see, we assessed these objectives in this lesson by starting a text feature picture dictionary. So that was really cool. So not only were they getting their hands on books and looking through there to identify these different text features, but then they were taking pictures of it on their iPad and they were putting it in Book Creator and making a picture dictionary for themselves. So we move on to our learning strategies, and again, this was what strategies can you use that's going to help you not only in this lesson but maybe later on. So we're working on cooperation. They're working with partners, they're discussing, they're having those conversations. We're working on imagery, visualizing, making sure that not only can they visualize what thieves means and how they can remember that mnemonic device we use later on, but that their picture dictionary has all these visuals for them to look back on. Now the mnemonic device Thieves is just a way to remember what all the text features are in nonfiction, and we will continue to use it throughout this unit. This is also assessed by giving them a self-assessment of the learning strategies. Are these strategies helpful for you? Will you be able to use them in the future? So the materials we had is just our PowerPoint on Thieves. That's really introducing what is a mnemonic device, what are nonfiction text features, and how are we going to use this mnemonic device to help us remember them. We had a book cart full of nonfiction text on volcanoes that they could look through, again, really hands-on, and then the iPad was used to take pictures of those text features and then to add on to their book creator, just continuing to give examples for themselves what those text features are. So again, this MPI strand is really helpful in making those modifications. So not only am I assessing students by using the MPI strand to see what can I really be looking for, what can I really be expecting of these different levels, but how can I modify this so that these students are successful? So in level 1, I'm having, again, students are still matching those pre-made images from nonfiction text to the correct text feature label. Okay, then in level 2, students will identify one text feature from the text and then explain its job or purpose to their partner, and then they can add it to their book creator, and again, it just keeps going up. As far as we can keep going, they'll identify more and more of those text features. What I really like here is in level 5, if we jump all the way up, students are not only going to be able to identify and explain the purpose of the 5 different text features that they're finding, but they are going to be using complete sentences to write it out in their book creator, as well as audio recording themselves. I really like the audio recording option that I have for all of these different levels, because you can go back and listen to them again and again, and that's going to be a great way to check if they are making the language objectives that you set for them. So then we get to our next lesson. This is lesson 3. It's another Cala lesson, and we are going to be focusing again on the text features. So this is a lot of review, which I think in any unit that you do, especially with ELS, you want to be reviewing constantly what you've done the day before, which is why you're bringing in a lot of that prior knowledge. What do they already know? And we're going to be adding online search tools. Now, we make this easy. There's only 3 online search tools that we are going to be presenting to them, but I think it's really important that we add that into the text features, because I make a big point in telling the kids, you're not only going to be reading nonfiction text in books, but there's nonfiction text online, and they have iPads, so they're constantly using them to read new things. So this goes really well with our standards, because it's using text features and search tools. So as you can see, the 3 big search tools are keywords, sidebars, and hyperlinks. So we're kind of adding this onto the text features because we want them to be able to use technology. This is not only going to be helpful in the classroom, but later on in life. They're going to be using keywords, sidebars, and hyperlinks. And there's going to be so much information online that they can get if they just know how to access it. So we assess this again through their text feature picture dictionary. We're having them just add keywords, sidebars, and hyperlinks. And the way that I do this is I model with an actual online web source. I project it on the board. I show them how I would use it, what it's looked like. I have the words written out so they're visibly seen on a sentence strip somewhere. And then as they continue to work and as they get practice looking at a real web source, I'm going to be looking to see if the students can orally name text features and search tools that they're finding on their web source. I'm going to be seeing if they can explain why are those tools there for you, what is their purpose. And so that's going to be me informally observing them, listening to their discussions, looking at their recorded audio, and then if they've added it to their text feature picture dictionary. So then in that same lesson, you're going to see I'm still focusing on strategies, what can they continue work on so that they can not only use that strategy in this lesson, but later on in life. So again, cooperation is always going to be key. Imagery is always going to be key. That mnemonic device, we're going to be reviewing that because that's great practice for ELS to do. And then I'm going to be grouping as well. So this time we're going to be focusing on text features and online search tools, and then we're going to compare and contrast them using a Venn diagram. So I really want to know, how are text features and search tools alike? And the big idea we want them to come to is that these are just tools to help readers locate information. That's our big goal. And again, we're going to be assessing their learning strategies by giving them a self-assessment through an exit slip, and they'll really just tell themselves, yeah, this was helpful to me, or no, I use other strategies that are more helpful. The materials I use, again, using the thieves, reviewing it, using real online web sources. So I don't have that book cart for this for this lesson, excuse me. I have the online web sources instead of the books because I want them getting comfortable using their iPads more. Okay, so then in lesson 3, again, this is my other MPI strand, and the MPI strand is going to help me modify for all levels, and I really like that because I'm going to be really hitting every person. And so for that level 1, I still think they really need help just matching those pre-made images of search tools to the correct label. Now if we go all the way up to level 5, as you can see, students will be able to identify and explain all of the search tools using complete sentences, putting their audio on Book Creator. So it's just a matter of how can we modify. Obviously, if they are ready to do more, then I can already move them up a level if that's what they're more comfortable with, if that's what they're showing me. If not, then they're still successful at the level that they're at that time. So then in our lesson 4, we have our SIOP model, and we're really looking at, okay, we've identified all these text features, we're using mnemonic devices to remember them, we're using these online search tools, and we're talking about the purpose of them, but we want to continue to really stress the purpose of these text features. So we're going to, again, be using the same standards, the same content objectives, but this time, we're going to be using an actual article from Scholastic News, and that's going to be really our meaningful activity. We're going to be taking a picture walk through an actual article in real life. We're going to be seeing how is it structured, what do we see in there, what are the text features, and how does that text feature help you understand the information, because that's really the main key. Anytime we read something, we want to understand it. So they're going to think, pair, share with their partners on what text features they've noticed. Did they use the thieves strategy to help them identify what that text feature is called? And then from there, we're going to be, again, listening for them to identify and explain the purpose of those different features. And it's just really just making sure the kids have got this down, that text features are going to be helping the reader locate information to understand the information. And so once they do that, they want to explain that text features help readers. So we're going to be doing that through a cool, meaningful activity called Line Up. It's really nice. I actually do it instead of a line. I actually get students in 2 big circles. So one is a middle circle, one is an outside circle. They face each other, and then every time I ask a question or we review something, they discuss it with a partner, and then I say switch. One of the circles just moves to the next person, and then they get experience discussing and talking and using the key vocabulary for that day. And then a think, pair, share is always a great way to get students discussing together. Okay, so in lesson 4, again, we're still there. Purpose of text features. We're going to be using Scholastic News, which is an awesome resource. I hope that more teachers can use it in their classrooms. We're going to be using our iPads again because we can actually access Scholastic News not only in print but on the iPad as well. And then we're going to be looking at the Thieves text feature scavenger hunt worksheet. So this is not as high tech as we've been in the past couple of lessons. This is just a worksheet where we're going to be writing down text features we saw and how they helped us, but it's still really a good way to get the kids excited to be hunting for those text features. Okay, again, the MPI strand is really helpful for modifications. So for this one, it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past for modifications. So in level 1, students are still going to be matching images, but these images have been taken from the actual Scholastic News text, and they're going to be matching those pictures with the text features and its purpose, and those are going to be on its own vocabulary card. So they're still matching, and they're still working on that. Now, level 2, students will identify one text feature in the Scholastic News, and then they will explain the purpose to their partner. And what's really nice is those students can even cut those text features out, and they can start to put it in their text feature scavenger hunt if they really wanted to. And then again, it's just identifying more and more of those features. And then if we jump all the way to level 5, students will be able to fill out the scavenger hunt and explain to a partner what the text features were that they found and what information they actually were able to find. So this is giving not only the purpose, but taking it a step farther, explaining their understanding of the new text that they just have received, and then they're going to be discussing what details they found because of those text features and how it helped them get to that main idea of the article. So it's really good. Okay, so then lesson 5, it's another SciOp lesson. Now this is kind of like we're coming to the end of this unit, and obviously we know as teachers we have to be flexible with our timing, so these lessons might not happen in just a day, and that's okay. So once you're done with all of those previous activities and teaching points, you're going to be reviewing this now. And I always like to bring back that Thieves PowerPoint because it's so important for them to, again, keep using that mnemonic device strategy if it's really working for you. And I really still want you not only identifying the text features, but explaining how they're helpful. How can they help a reader locate information? So we're going to use a lineup activity again, and we're going to be using a Jeopardy game. And we're going to use the numbered heads together activity in the Jeopardy game. So this is a way to group students together that might not be grouped together often, really get the levels mixed, and then for people to share the answers that their groups have come up with in Jeopardy. It's just a easy way to just roll a dice and say, okay, number blah blah blah, you are going to explain to us what your group came up as an answer. So students are going to orally identify those text features and explain their purposes, and again we're using lineup and Jeopardy. Alright, so I talked about the Thieves PowerPoint as being such an important review because you always want to bring back the previous knowledge that students have, and we're really hitting that Thieves hard. We can even go back and review, like, what did you find in your scavenger hunt activity? Does anybody want to share? So that could be part of that lineup activity that we had talked about earlier. People can even get with a partner or do the lineup again and share one text feature with someone, switch another text feature, and that's all going to be in their iPad book creator. And then once we're all ready for that, we can start playing the Jeopardy review game, and that's where we're using the numbered heads together activity within the game. Now there is going to be at the end a final formal assessment, and that is when we give the students a article at their level, and they have to find the text features and explain the purpose of the text feature once they've identified it. Now that's going to be modified to them, and then throughout this whole unit we have this accumulating final project through Book Creator, which is nice because that's another way to kind of show, instead of just having, you know, that final formal summative assessment, you know, you're going to have this ongoing project, which is really nice to see growth. So there will be a rubric for that as well. And I have matching activities because, as you know, if you do have a level 1L that's doing this unit, they still have something to show in their project. They have all of those matching activities that they've done. So in the MPI strand, you can see what the vocabulary that they are going to be focused on, what I'm going to be listening for in any of their audio, and then you can see just what am I looking for. And this MPI strand is really used to determine the level with that final assessment. So in the final assessment, my level 1 students, they're going to be able to match images from that article that they were given at their lexile, and they are going to be able to match it to the vocabulary word that goes along with it. And then as we go up into level 2, students will identify and cut out 2 text features in the article, and then they're going to label them, and then they're going to match them and just continue on and on from there. I like the level 5 again because not only are they filling out their informational text features guide, which is that formal assessment at the end, but they are going to be able to tell us what information they have found in their article and how that text feature was useful to them. So as you can see, we kind of have been talking about that word assessment, and I wanted to just go over all of the assessments that we've kind of used throughout this unit. So throughout the unit, we've had pre and post assessments. We've had the 7-question true or false characteristics of nonfiction and fiction that was used all the way back in lesson 1. And then we have informal observations of discussions throughout. I think every lesson had that. Self-assessments came in the CALA lessons when they were really looking at the strategies and how they were useful to them. We did have another pre and post after we used thieves to kind of figure out, do you remember what the mnemonic device stands for? Do you know these different text features? How are they helpful to you? So it's the same kind of thing. Now at the end of this unit, like I said, we have this, this accumulating project. We have the picture dictionary on Book Creator, which is huge. And you can see an example of it down at the bottom, which I love. I mean, these are real pictures taken of real books. The one that's a caption is a close-up of a photograph in a actual nonfiction textbook on volcanoes, and that is actually a caption but has a label. So that's, the students get confused when there's a caption with an arrow because they want to call it a label, but it's really a caption there. And it's just such a great way for the students to really take ownership of their learning. And then this other picture over here, it's not actually a self-assessment, it's part of that summative assessment. So once they read the article, they're going to take this informational text features guide and they're going to be filling it out again with the modifications set in place for their language proficiency. So I just want to thank you for listening to this unit. I hope it was helpful, and I hope that, I hope that this can be used by teachers and make it really meaningful. I know that I'll be using it again in the future. I think it was really, really great, and I think the students got a lot out of it. So thanks again.